The Journey program on UBC TV.
Hello everyone, my name is Petwa Bakwaska Samasby. I am the founder of Heartwood House, Australia. This is a behavior support company which also does provide employment services. I am also a behavior support practitioner. Some other people call it, call me clinician, pretty much the same thing. Now, I was born in Kenya and I grew up in Ethiopia where I spent majority of my childhood, and then from there I moved to the United States. From the United States I moved back to Uganda where I attended a Taiba International School. From Taiba I now moved on to Cambodia. From Cambodia I moved to Vienna where I finished my high school. And then from there I attended my first degree that was in Malaysia. Then from Malaysia I now moved on to Australia where I did my Masters of Criminology and Criminal Justice. It is from that space where I fell in love so much working with vulnerable people, and I decided to get into the space of working with people with disabilities. And since working in that space, from employment to the criminal justice system and now to behavior support, I've fallen incredibly in love with that space and just supporting people in that space and truly understanding where they come from, their stories, their worlds. I have really never regretted having gone into that space. I grew up with a very, very principled father. He was so principled. He's a disciplinarian until this very date. My mother is very, very religious. So when you combine those sort of traits, it has really grounded me. As I've grown up from a very young age to this point, I feel the need to advocate for those who do not have a voice, for those who are struggling in their day-to-day, for those who feel that their worlds need to be seen. And so it is from that time, from that space where I realized, okay, behavior support allows me to combine my childhood experiences and just celebrating what people have, the strength that they have. And that is where I am to this very day. I've got very strong connections to Uganda. I love the people, the culture. I don't even want to say that I've got strong connections. I'm Ugandan. I'm grounded in the culture, grounded in the people, grounded in the community, grounded in the villages, and I just enjoy everything about the country. Now, while I grew up in Ethiopia, both my parents were diplomats. So they started from Kenya, moved to Ethiopia, and dad especially moved to different parts of the world. The same with mom. Having worked in Ethiopia, she moved a couple of countries around the world, and then she finished her service in Sudan, Darfur. Now, it is from high school that I now moved to Malaysia and embarked on my journey where I completed my first degree in communications. I also had the chance to work as a public relations executive with a public relations firm that also dealt with events. And then my work there saw my journey move to countries like Indonesia, South Africa, Vietnam, where I did a little bit of work in the space of communications. And then from there, I now moved to Australia. Now, my journey to Australia, I wanted to get into the space of investigations, truly understanding, because of my childhood experience, I went through very, very challenging experiences. And I felt, a lot of times when you go through any circumstance you go through, you realize there's a reason behind it. And I was interested in understanding what is in the minds of those who victimize people. And so I wanted to understand what happens when this person behaves the way they do, or why do they behave the way they do. And so I thought that investigations and criminology would be a very good space to explore. And so that is when I now applied to a couple of countries to pursue a criminology degree. And Australia was one of those that offered me a space. And so I moved into Australia, worked in different capacities. At one point, I even worked as a cleaner. As I explored and to see where I wanted to go, I worked in the aged care sector. And then from there, I now moved to the disability space. Actually, before I moved to the disability space, I moved to China, where I taught as a teacher for 3 years. And I incredibly loved that journey, incredibly loved working with Chinese people and the culture and the food. Then from China, I now moved back to Australia. I went to Darwin and I now work with Indigenous people. I started off in the disability space, employment sector. And then from the employment sector, I now moved to behavior support. And I work a lot with Indigenous people, people with complex behaviors, people in the forensic space. And I've never looked back on my journey. So when I was in Darwin, I got into the space of behavior support. I was working under a gentleman called Peter Veltman. He is now late. He's my boss, my previous boss. And you know, he said, come in and let's see how you go with behavior support. I didn't know what behavior support entailed. I had absolutely no idea. And so when I go into behavior support, there's a lot of report writing, a lot of observations, a lot of investigations. And I said, you know what, I'm really loving this. We don't do a lot of client facing, but when we do face clients, we use that opportunity to really understand who the client is. And it is from that space, after a couple of months, I realized, you know what, I really like this. And so my boss passed away, and he asked us, he said, I would love you to carry on my legacy. He asked everybody in the company to carry on his legacy. And I felt in my heart that because he gave me that chance, and I loved him as a person. He was so human. He was so passionate about his work, passionate about looking after us as people. And so I realized, you know what? He inspired me to start Heartwood House. And so Heartwood House is the dedication to Peter Veltman, who passed away about 4 years ago. And it is from that journey when I started to connect with a lot of participants, a lot of people that I meet on the streets, when they say they've got a child or a person in their family or a person in the community that they know has got this behavioral problem. I never looked at it as a behavior problem. I looked at it as an opportunity where I needed to dig deep into the person's world to understand where are they coming from, what are they trying to communicate, what can we do to help them get to where they want to be. And I sit down every day and I realize I'm so lucky to be in this field, and I cannot thank God enough for being in this field. The challenges, I like this question about challenges I face with Heartwood House. I think it is the compliance as number one, because I work under Heartwood House is provider. It sits under the body of the NDIS Commission, National Disability Insurance Scheme Commission, and there are a lot of requirements, a lot of safeguards in place, which is good, and I understand and respect the need for this because it does protect the people. But when there's compliance, sometimes with so many compliance coming out every single day, we realize as providers, and as me as a person, I realize that sometimes it gets hard to, I feel like compliance comes in between the participants I serve and the work that I do. My priority is to serve the participants, though I know that they need to be protected. And so it gets really, really challenging. When I started Heartwood House, they looked for so many compliance. It was a smooth ride, but now every year, every 2 years, we do have auditing, and they do a lot of check with everything that we're doing. Are we meeting obligations? Are we meeting client obligations? Which is fine, but it is so hefty that sometimes you forget that the clients actually have needs. The clients need you before they need the compliance. When I was in Malaysia, I had the opportunity to go down to South Africa, and where I was working in the space of communications, and I got attached to quite a popular radio station. And I had the opportunity to interview Desmond Tutu at a conference. And one thing that I noticed about him is he's a man of the people. He looks beyond your heart. He looks beyond the surface or your labels. And when we spoke, he didn't know who I was. He didn't know where I was from. But he was so graceful enough to just sit down and have a conversation with me. And I think one of the things that we remember about him is his very infectious laugh, and it's what we use at the radio station. And we always giggled about it. But one thing we really appreciated about him is that he is truly a very humble and gracious man. So behavior is communication. Now, when I get a participant referred to me with a behavior of concern, I put the behavior aside as number one, and I look at the person as whole with their entire being, trying to understand who is this person, what is their strengths, what are their challenges, just who are them as a whole. And then it is from there that through my observations after a couple of meet and greets, I'll be able to see, okay, this is the behavior they're speaking about. Now, I do look through a lot of incident reports. I look through a lot of ABC data. That's the antecedent. What happens before the behavior? What does the behavior look like? And what happens after the behavior? That's the consequence. And what maintains the behavior? Now, when I get to that point of looking at the person's behavior, I understand that they're trying to communicate something. And I'll sit down with the person and I'll say, what is it that you want? What are your needs? What is it that we can do to help you? And a lot of times, because of the relationship that you've built with them, they'll be able to tell you what they're looking for, what their needs are. And sometimes it's those very simple things in the environment, like, she doesn't listen to me. That's a very common thing that I get. Oh, he's always on his phone. Now, we have a lot of support staff, wonderful, wonderful people, and they do their best. They try their best to support the people that we support. But I think one of the challenges that we go through is a lot of times, I guess coming from exhaustion, the phones take control. And so a lot of the participants we work with say, I want more attention. He doesn't see me. He doesn't listen to me. Listening is so powerful. And one of the things that I tell my support staff, a lot of times we will write in the reports, you need to listen, you need to keep them calm. But I realized over the years in my practice, what does calm look like? What does listening mean? What is the neuroscience behind listening? Because the support staff will tell you, no, we listen to them, we hear them, but the listening that the support staff do is very different to what the clients need, what the participants need. So what happens when you listen to a person? The person is, what is your tone like? What is the rhythm of your tone? Does it sound like music? They say the voice of a person or the voice of someone speaking needs to sound like music, needs to be melodic, needs to have rhythm. Because when it goes through the eardrums as a sound wave and goes through the vagal nerve, touches the nervous system, the nervous system is what dictates to the person listening that they are safe or they are not safe. And so it's very important. This is why I emphasize to the support staff, this is what happens when you listen. This is why you need to listen. Listening is about getting your phone away and having that strong attunement to the person. Attunement is about taking that person, the entire being, and truly providing them with that very deep listening. It's about your posture. It's about how your pupils dilate. It's about the frown on your face. It takes so much how to attune. So there's listening, and then there is hearing someone. So listening takes a lot, and I love to talk about the power of listening. A typical day, so I've got 3 children. So for me, 3 boys, they're very, very busy boys. As much as I love them, extremely busy, but I have to wake up at around 5 in the morning and support my kids through breakfast, go to school. Of course, I have my own breakfast, but I make sure that my breakfast entails something that can allow me to focus because, like I've mentioned, I need something that allows me to listen. Listening for me is very natural, but I need something that will keep me awake in the listening spirit. And so when I get my kids to school, so for example, I might have my support coordinator. So a support coordinator is somebody who provides me with clients. So sometimes I get my clients from the support coordinator. He is responsible for looking for services for what the participants need. So in my case, behavior support. If a client needs behavior support, she'll say, Petwa, she'll call me, hey, I've got this client. This is his diagnosis. These are his risks. Are you able to support the client? So I'll say, could we have a meeting in about 30 minutes? I would like to have more information on this client. She'll say, okay, not a problem. So take my kids to school and then I'll catch up with her for coffee, or she'll say, you know what, Petra, could you just communicate online on Teams? I'll say, okay. But I prefer to meet up for coffee because I love the face-to-face interaction. And so we'll catch up for coffee and she'll say, all right, this is the participant that I have diagnosed with ADHD, autism, schizophrenia, very, very complex. I think you can do it. What do you think? I'll say, all right, what are the risks involved? Before I say yes, I need to know what are the risks involved. Is there a case of property damage? Am I at risk if I go to meet the person? Sometimes our participants might be carrying firearms and they might not know who you are. And when they see you and you look threatening, they might turn on that pistol. Okay? So we need to be, we need to put ourselves in a very safe position. Or they might be clients that engage in property damage. They might see you, they don't know who you are. All sorts of behaviors come into play. So those, to give you a snapshot, those are sort of the clients that I deal with. And so I'll ask her for this risk assessment. I'll determine whether I can take on this participant or not. If I can, most of the times I can. If I can, I'll say, all right. I'll develop what we call a service agreement. Okay, it will list down all the terms and conditions and how much I charge. And I'll get her to send that along with the consent form. If they're happy, if the participants' support carers are happy to sign the form, participants themselves happy to sign the form, I'll take them on officially, and then I'll give them a call to introduce myself officially, get to know who they are, just a 5-minute call, thank them for allowing me to support them. And what I'll do is I'll now book in for an official meeting to actually meet them at a different time. And so before I meet the participant, I'll have to do what we call an intake risk assessment that determines, it sort of determines am I safe, whether I'm safe if I enter the person's property. Are there dogs? Are there firearms? Are there just anything that is dangerous that might put myself at risk or the people that I'm walking with at risk? And so once I get all this set, I will now go and see the participant. First time I meet the participant, I'm there to really build that support with them. So I might carry some materials with me. If the client is very young, like I support a child who is 9 years old. First time I went to meet her, carried some fidget toys because she gets very nervous when she's met someone for the first time. So sometimes some fidget balls might help them calm their nerves down. I might go with coloring books. I went with some coloring books. I said, do you love to color? She said, yes, I do. And because she said, oh, there's somebody who likes to color with me, I think I like this person. So she gets very comfortable with you. So your role is to sort of make them a little bit comfortable, to get them to open up a little bit, to get them to know that they're actually very safe. And so you color together, you ask them, what do you love about this color? What is your favorite color? Wow, could you show me some of your paintings? And before you know, they're taking you around the house, showing you all sorts of places. This is my room, this is my mom's room. And before you know it, the parents are very happy knowing, oh, the daughter loves this person. The parents are also opening up, telling you their challenges. And when the parents open up about the challenges, it's when you realize there is so much that you have to do, so much that you're missing, so much that the child is missing or the adult is missing, that now the pieces are starting to come together. So this is what's going to form the beginning of your report writing. So once I'm done, I go back. Obviously, I have case notes that I write. I do a lot of invoicing, you know, and from then I'll book to see the client, depending on the person's funding. I'll book to see the client maybe 1 month later, but in between, I'm making phone calls to the client, talking to her, asking how she's going, talking to the parents or the key support staff who are looking after the person, asking them how they're going, and I'll design what we call a QR code. This QR code is what will capture the information about the person's behavior. I'll ask the parents to now input data across the weeks, and that data is what I'm now going to use to start writing what we call the functional behavior assessment. Now, I'm talking about people that do not have what we call restrictive practices. Now, for those who don't know restrictive practices are practices that restrict the rights and freedoms of movement of an individual. So, for example, we've got chemical restraint, which deals with medication. So you might give somebody medication that influences their behavior, stops them from displaying a particular behavior. Or you might have environmental restraint that deals with stopping them from accessing anything in the environment that they might use to harm themselves, to harm you, or to harm anything in the environment. So when I have a client that deals with restrictive practices or has restrictive practices, I now have to write what we call an interim report. And it takes me, well, we have 30 days to complete that report, understand what are the restrictive practices in place, Why are they there? And is this the very last resort? Was there any other alternative that could have been done? I will develop that interim report, submit it. Then from there, I'll now do what we call the functional behavior assessment. So this is, the FBA is what I call the juice of the work that I do. The FBA will describe the behavior of the person. It will describe the frequency of the person's behavior. How often does the person's behavior occur? The duration, how long does it occur for? Is it 5 minutes? Is it 10 minutes? And it will also determine the intensity. We look at monetary terms here. How many times have you had to buy the bed because your son has broken the bed? And how much have you had to pay? Is it $10? Is it $30? Or is it $500? I have a client whose son displays with severe behavior problems, and one of them is property damage out of boredom. He's got ASD, he's got ADHD, and several other conditions. And the mother has spent over $1,200 replacing the beds in her home. So this is what the FBA brings together. And then we look at the risks involved. What is the risk of this person's behavior to the person, to the environment, and to the people looking after them? And from there, we now make recommendations in the FBA. We say, okay, this is what needs to be done. We also look at the background, the history of the person. How does their diagnosis impact the person on the day-to-day? What are the different ways that they're not able to function in the community? So we piece all these things together. It's a very, very lengthy report, about 45 pages. This FBA truly is the creme de la creme. It is what we're going to use to now draft what we call the functional behavior assessment. That is what everybody asks for. Can we have the behavior support? Can we have the behavior support? But the FBA also entails 4 categories that determine why a person behaves the way they do. So this behavior support plan is what we use to submit to the NDS Commission and to the support people who are looking after the support staff. Now we make it very, very simple as well for the people looking after the support staff. They don't have time to read a 60-page report. So you've got the FBA, you're telling them, read the FBA 45, and then you're telling them, read the behavior support plan 60 pages. What I do, the 60 pages are for the medical practitioners we deal with, the occupational therapists we deal with, the physiotherapists. They'll read that. When it comes to the support workers, we design very short materials that give us the triggers of the person's behaviors, the risks involved, strengths of the person, the likes, the dislikes. What do they need to do? What we do from there is we conduct training. Right after I write the report, we conduct training. And training is where you get a lot of the information from the key workers. They'll tell you, Petwa, we try that. Behavior support doesn't fix things overnight. It takes time. Sometimes it might take 2 years, 3 years, but there's one thing that I have learned in my practice that really gets the clock ticking, and that is consistency. It is having things in the environment that allows the person to know that person is always there. And the number one thing that makes a lot of people feel safe is people. Do I still have the same person supporting me? Am I still going to the same environment at the same time? You find somebody who's willing to engage with you, and you find over time their behaviors decrease because they know that this same person is coming back to me tomorrow, or this same person is coming back to me next week. That's the number one thing I have realized in my practice that is the kickstart to any success in supporting people with disabilities. I want to say that I feel very honored and very humbled to have been recognized as one of the top 50 global inspirational women to look out for in 2027. What does it mean to me? To me, it means resilience. It means hope. It means faith. Why I say this is because I look back in my childhood, how I grew up. And while I faced a lot of challenges, the school gave me a chance. it gave me a chance. I always talk about the importance of the schools that you go to, the teachers that you meet. Until this very day at my age, I still have so much support from the teachers that taught me many, many years ago. Every time I'm in Uganda, I cannot fail to go back to the schools that I went to say thank you, to visit them. I've taken my children there because to me it was huge. They are the reasons why I've been recognized. My recognition has not come from me alone. It's not been by chance. It's been, you know how they say it takes a village to raise a child? So many people have been part of my village. I've just been that little girl standing there with so many people directing me, go here, go there, try this, try that. I have leaned on people. I have cried with people. And so it's all been part of resilience. It's been part of faith. I have kept the faith. I have kept the hope. And I've felt, you know what? I'm going somewhere. And this is the point that I'm at. I am the vice president for the Ugandan Northern Territory Association. So one of the roles it plays is to bring Ugandans together in the NT. Living in the NT it can be very isolating. It's very far up in Northern Australia. And the Northern Territory is very different from other parts of Australia. I've had so many people say, what are you doing in the NT? Why the NT? If you come to the NT, sometimes you wonder, you know, am I really in Australia? But I want to reassure you that it is actually such an incredible place, and I love and I feel so blessed being on their land. And so to bring the Ugandans together, I felt that, you know, the Ugandans in the NT have a voice, and I needed to allow them to express their needs. I needed them to express their celebration with us and to tell us what they need on the day-to-day. And so my president Crescent and I, we come together every month. Actually, we speak nearly every day, making plans for Ugandans in the NT. And we work very closely with the Ugandan High Commission, Her Excellency Samali Dorothy. She's been absolutely supportive in our mission in the NT. She was with us a couple of months ago. We sat together, we've spoken about the importance of national IDs, dual citizenship, and we're sort of pushed for that. But I think the first important thing is to bring the Ugandans together and have that sense of belonging and preserve that connection where they're home away from home. I was in India a couple of weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago, and I attended the World Inclusion Conference as a speaker. Now, it was fascinating to see how much people on that platform value inclusion and belonging. It is something, as you're aware, it is the work that I do every day. I breathe inclusion, breathe disability support work. And one of the things that they spoke about a lot was belonging. Everybody spoke about belonging. But one of the things that I took away from there were two things. There was belonging and how it's an extension of something else. And then there is the importance of how do we get students to belong in the very first place. Now, I told people that, you know, it's wonderful to see that everybody speaks about belonging, but belonging is only a small part of the attachment scale. I talk about attachment in my work because attachment is so important. Attachment is how we survive in the world. Attachment is how we actually belong. Now, in attachment, we've got belonging. We've got significance. We've got proximity. We've got sameness. So belonging is not the only way that somebody needs to feel included. It includes sameness, it includes significance. How important do you make somebody feel? Do you allow a person to feel the same as you as a child? And if you didn't, that's where you're going to find that as they grow, they still want to be the same as you. And they look like a child, but it's possibly that they missed that stage in life. And so this is sort of what I preached at the World Inclusion Conference. And then we've got, one of the things that I mentioned was, yes, we want students to belong in a community, in a school, but what is the very first way we're going to make sure that they actually feel that they do belong? One of the ways that I said that everybody said, oh, that's very interesting, is in order for a child to belong, we need to ask, are the people looking after the child, like the teachers or the people in the school, do they actually belong? Are they actually included? Because it's very hard for a child to be looked after or to be pulled in a circle where they feel that they belong when a teacher is not looked after. So the very first point of contact is actually the teachers. Are we looking after the teachers? Do they truly feel that they do belong? Are they really included in the school environment? I think I would say the very special moment that I've had that has made me feel special about taking up this career is it's listening to someone's story. So the plans that I have for Heartwood House truly is to continue the journey that I'm on. It's to bring out voices that have not been heard, stories that have not been heard, worlds that have not been seen. I want to continue this mission, and I want people to know out there that you have a voice, you have a story, and that we're here to see you just as you are, wherever you are. And that's what Heartwood House will continue to do. I want to be remembered as somebody who listens. My last words to Ugandans and to the world is, don't ignore the person next to you. Listen. Listen to them. Understand where they're coming from. Understand their needs. You know, I was having a conversation with my mom the other day, and she was asking me, what does it mean when you counsel someone? And I said, you know, in Australia, when you do counseling, you're not supposed to provide advice. You can give people options, but your role really is to just listen. And she said, oh, but you know, Ugandans need options. They need solutions. I said, yes, Ugandans need solutions, but the very first step to providing that solution is to listen. And she says, that makes sense. So I'm telling you, guys, please, just listen. Listen. Soothe. When you soothe, you provide calmness. When you're calm, you think. When you think, you have solutions. So thank you so much. And truly thank you for everything. To me, every Ugandan is contributing to this community. So I want to thank you for everything and just truly thank you for listening to me today. Bye-bye.